Yes, hello and welcome to the Any Given Sunday Australia podcast, the only podcast running 31, 16 and 1. For the first time in what feels like 6 weeks, we've got all three of us together. We are separated. Some of us are in the jungle. Some of us are what feels like overseas and what we thought you lived in. Danny Webb, AGSAU, can you describe your background for those that can't see you?
Yeah, so I'm currently sat out the back of my place, hotspotting my phone because I couldn't be any further away from my Wi-Fi box. It's all because my lovely wife works in a hospital and has to work night shifts helping the community. So she's currently sleeping inside. So I'm doing my bit by still managing to get on and record, but I've been banished to the outside like a dog.
And Charlie Pick, does it make you feel... how does it make you feel when you've got a fiery that has a nurse for a wife as well? So,
yeah, I feel like I'm not making a great contribution. Although I remember during COVID, I was allowed to travel to work because I was considered an essential service. So apparently jokes are just as important as firefighters or emergency stuff at a hospital.
We don't want to get into the COVID, but laughter cures a lot of things. That's what I'll say that.
That's true. I think it kept some people from the edge. I'll say that. Being able to laugh at everything would have helped quite a bit.
Yeah. Boys,
I've always said laughter is the best medicine, with the exception of actual medicine.
Western
medicine.
Chinese medicine can work sometimes. It works all right.
Yeah.
Week 16, boys, was enormous. Some real games that had some massive, massive impacts. Honourable mention to the Texans. We know we don't talk about them heaps lately. They had a big win. But, Danny boy, you've listed a few. 49ers Seahawks, the first one. Both of them getting a win. Lines up a juicy game.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Like, obviously, the script writers, we've been saying this for weeks, but we were just hoping these outcomes were actually going to happen. And with the 49ers and Seahawks both getting pretty damn good wins, and the 49ers game against the Bears was electric. Like, that was an absolute score fest. Like, they were just taking it in turns. And also, Caleb Williams had every single opportunity in that final play. That pass into the end zone, like, missed by inches. And then we call it a game of inches for a reason. But, like, that was insane. That could have been a win. And I feel like Caleb Williams has had multiple attempts at the end of the end zone to win games so far this season. Like 50-50 going his way. But that game was crazy. But the 49ers walking away with the win, more importantly, puts him in the spot for the number 1 seed against the Seahawks next week. Crazy.
Danny, also he did have DJ Moore waving his hand. I'm pretty sure it was DJ Moore waving his hands in the end zone. Free as a bird. You could have fucking walked it over to him and he would have scored it. But you mentioned Williams. He went for 330. So how's that 4,000 tracking?
So we are only 270 yards away. And the Bears are playing the Lions, right? The Lions that are banged up, not making the playoffs, and their secondary has crashed since the start of the season. And if we go back to week 2, the Bears played the Lions. And Caleb Williams walked away with 207 yards then. He's got to know in the back of his head that 4,000 is on the cards. And I just can't wait to do an episode leading into the playoffs with you in a Caleb Williams jersey. It's going to be so beautiful.
You're going to have to get a Caleb Williams jersey to start with, but yes. On the other side of the... Yeah, I'm sure they will. Other side of the ledger, Charlie, the Panthers and the Bucks. Literally no one wants to win this division.
They are both doing everything that they can to be irrelevant, despite the fact that they're vying for their seasons to continue and have a chance. But that's sort of, I feel like that's where we are across the league at the moment. Anyway, I don't think there's a real standout dominant team that everyone needs to be afraid of, to be honest. Niners Seahawks, well, that's the Rams are what now? Sorry, like third, that's a result of that. And then you look at Bucks Panthers, no one did. They don't really deserve to make the playoffs the way they're playing at the moment. I've heard people saying that Todd Bowles should be concerned for his job at the end of the season. So his team could be making the wild card, and they're saying that, the way that they have collapsed through the end of the season, that they, there should be coaching changes, that there should, that the Bucks, we were talking about them after 6 weeks saying it could be the Bucks' year. And now it's just a mess. And also the Panthers, for everything that they've shown in recent weeks, that was a pretty underwhelming performance, an inability to score that is deeply concerning. And, it's I'd be looking forward to playing against them in the first week of the playoffs if I was anyone else in the NFC.
I was about to say, the 1 seed is always good, but at the moment, the 5th seed looks pretty good too. I'll take that spot any day of the week. The funny thing that comes out of this, though, because of the Falcons beating the Rams, the Bucks have fucked themselves where they can win, and if the Falcons win this week, they'll all be 8-9, and the Falcons, because of the tie and stuff like that, actually help the Panthers, so they all could be 8-9. The Bucks can win, but the Panthers actually make the playoffs.
Wow. It's just the cream rising to the top, isn't it? NFC South.
It's the shit bit of the milk that's at the top that you're just like, oh, no one wants that anyway.
Yeah. But that's the thing. I mean, that's the exciting thing about this part of the season is teams can play and win, and it still doesn't help them, and they can lose, and they are fine. Like it's a bizarre time to apply mathematics that we all forgot at high school.
Yeah, this is where quantum physics comes in, just to work out who the hell's going to actually make it. And they're back to being the dumpster fire that we called at the start of the season, which is nice. Danny boy, the Ravens getting a massive win against my Packers, which we are going to go into a little bit deeper soon. But the Steelers losing to Cleveland has set up for, which now will be the last game of the season. The fixtures come out. They will be the last game. It's a juicy one to finish.
So I'm just going to touch on the Steelers' loss here for a second. They were doing everything possible to stop Myles Garrett getting the sack record, and then just forgot about the rest of the game. Like, forgot to play football. Like, that's all the Steelers cared about. And then Shedeur Sanders and the Browns just were like, nah, this game's ours. And then when it came down to it, Aaron Rodgers on that final drive just couldn't get it done. And it was, like, heartbreaking for them to see, because if they won that, like, it's over, But now they've just set up this perfect game against the Ravens and the Steelers, who, we weren't expecting this at the start of the season. Like, I thought on paper, the Ravens were like the favorite to make the Super Bowl, and they just couldn't get it done. And it was really interesting because Tyler Huntley was the one who actually went out there and got the win against your Packers. So it was a backup QB, and then the point we're going to touch on later about the running backs. But Tyler Huntley's the only Raven to have 2 wins. Well, not the only Raven, the quarterback, to have 2 wins against plus 500 teams. Lamar Jackson hasn't managed to do that so far this season, which raises a huge question mark over him. Like, he's been so injured. Don't get me wrong, he's carrying injuries through this. But maybe sometimes when you are injured, just take that step back and let your backup QB go in there who's fresh and healthy.
Tyler Huntley is Lamar 0.0, 0.2, or whatever you had, 2.0. But Charlie, coming into this week, Lamar going off with back spasms or whatever it was 2 weeks ago, do we stick with Tyler Huntley and just say, you know what, King Henry works pretty well with him?
Well, you add to that the fact that there are whispers getting reported and around the NFL rumor mill that the coach Harbaugh is actually a bit jack of Lamar Jackson. There's actually there are some sources who've said that that Harbaugh has said that he hasn't been mature enough, that it's got shades of Kyler Murray to this, but saying that he's worried too much about video gaming and not focusing on football. And so, if this is make or break for the Ravens, I don't think anyone would if Lamar is healthy, it's insane to not play Lamar Jackson. The guy's a 2-time MVP and he knows how to play football. But obviously things are not right in Baltimore. We've seen that throughout the season. And it's not just the injuries. There's psychologically the way that team's holding together. People are talking about if it's time for Harbaugh to move on. And so because they're not going to get they're not going to get it. They just aren't gelling and getting it together. So you would have to say the most reliable strategy would be just hand the ball off to Derrick Henry and it doesn't matter who does it.
I'll tell you what, it worked against the Packers. But I will say this right now, just those rumour mills that you're talking about, and I really like this rumour mill. Lamar Jackson, I'm pretty sure a Florida native, heading down to play in the Dolphins colours next year. Just keep that in the back of your mind.
That is a
heading
hell of
home.
a rumor. The deal that he did with the Ravens, though, do you remember? It feels like, was it last off season?
No, he's coming into year 4 of his 5-year deal. So,
Oh, really? Is it that been that soon? God,
yep.
Maybe it's just because that Lamar Jackson contract story ran for about a year and a half. It's hard to date it. But right. So, that makes a lot more sense. There isn't that much contract to buy out.
Correct.
You know,
I'm telling you, he'll look good in that. Is it teal blue? Is that what the color is?
Yeah, it's Oh, he absolutely will. I mean, wow, that's a big scoop if that's true. That's a good rumor. That's a rock solid rumor. Although, and I hate to say this, I think the far more likely option would be Malik Willis goes from the Packers down to Miami.
Yeah. All right. So you're going Malik. I'm saying Lamar. I'm sure Danny will throw his 2 cents in, but I'm going to throw to you, Danny, just because I feel like if we go
Phillip Rivers,
Charlie
he's saying Phillip Rivers to start for the Dolphins.
Kaepernick's coming back. He'll be there. Danny boy, honourable mention for this week. The Eagles getting the job done against the Bills. We're going to leave Charlie out of this one because I don't want any tears in Christmas time, you know?
Yeah, well, crazy game, right? So that weather was insane. Eagles defense really came out and dominated for the first half. And then the Bills defense came out and dominated for the second. And, the Eagles, I think, had 17 total yards going into that for the whole second half. It was absolutely crazy. And then the Bills finally went down on that final drive. Josh Allen just doing Josh Allen things and scored. And then they called to go for 2, which is a really interesting decision by the coach there because the Eagles couldn't do anything at that point in the game. They had nothing left. Mind you, the counter argument for that is, well, the offense of the Bills were pretty much on the field for the entire second half. They could have been gassed, and maybe that's what they were thinking. But that was a completely makeable pass for that 2-point conversion from Josh Allen, which makes me think he probably was a bit tired. He probably had the ball for too long in that second half, just because Tom Brady kept on saying Jalen Hurts was making the right decisions on third downs. And I was like, well, if anyone's going to know, Tom Brady is, because he was just throwing the ball away. If nothing was open, he wasn't taking that risk. It was just whatever. The defense is doing so well, I'm just going to leave him out in the field. And it was almost like that amount of defensive pressure forced the Bills to go for that 2-point conversion. And then they ended up missing. And the Eagles walked, luckily, no way am I saying that was a great game by the Birds, but luckily the Eagles defense stood up enough in that first half to then walk away with that victory after that missed 2-point conversion.
I promised no tears after this game. I wasn't sure if I had any feelings at all. I will say that having Bagley as a replacement kicker who's come in to replace the 2 injured kickers that we have, and his first extra point kick actually got blocked, I think that had a lot to do with the decision to go for 2 points. I just don't think there was the confidence that even getting the extra point to take it to overtime was going to happen. I do think the Eagles defense were gassed by the end of it. They'd been on the field for so long. And my favorite stat is I think Jalen Hurts had 0 net yards in the second half. He had 2 yards. I think he had 2 yards rushing, and then he had a tackle for, sacked for 2 yards as well at some point, and -2. So he ended up with 0 yards in the second half. I came out of that game thinking neither of these teams should be proud of themselves. That's all I thought. There are just major issues with both of these teams. I was like, you should be happy with your defense in the first half. I was happy with our defense in the second half. But it's just that year where these are 2 teams that should be humming at this point of the season. There was nothing about that game that should make everyone proud.
If it makes you both feel better, I'm not happy about the Packers either. So all 3 of us can really wallow in our own self-pity, which is nice. Speaking of the Packers, Danny boy, you brought up, and I will go to you as well, Charlie. I want your opinion. But Danny, first off, it was a dominant week by dominant running backs. And we've picked 2 and an honourable mention. But of those 2, Derrick Henry or Bijan Robinson, who had a more impressive game, Danny?
Well, Derrick Henry beat your Packers, so I'm always going to pick the big King Henry. Also, he rushed for 4 touchdowns. That is insane. And he's had multiple games so far this season where he's gone over 200 yards. But then the games where he doesn't, he's just not really doing much performing. So he kind of hasn't really been smack bang in the middle of the headlines. But yeah, 4 touchdowns against your Packers for 216 yards. I'm taking that every day of the week.
Charlie, how does Bijan top that? How do you plead a case for that?
Well, I mean, I think Bijan showed like his receiving was really crucial in that game as well, and I think just to the eye he was exciting to watch. Like there were ways that he was running and slashing and cutting that were just really like it was exciting to watch him play. It was a pleasure, it's interesting. I think there are lots of debates about who's been the best running back in the league this season. I think there's probably 4 or 5 standout running backs this year, but I think Bijan is right up there. And I think his good games are as good as anyone else. I think just on numbers alone, though, it's hard to top 4 touchdowns on the ground, is like, it says fix your passing game, obviously, but it's impressive. Like it's an impressive stat and hard to beat.
I was able to just lean on him and he did it really well. Bijan, there was a stat that came out yesterday during the game. I think he's got the most scrimmage yards before the age of 24. So he is up there, with that hype that he kind of came into the league with. He's starting to produce, which is enormous, including that 93-yard rushing touchdown, which really broke the back of the Rams. I do want an honourable mention for, I believe they've changed the name from the San Fran 49ers to the San Fran Christian McCaffreys, because it is all about him. I know Brock Purdy played pretty well, but without McCaffrey, the 49ers are done this season. So he's another one that is just secretly going about his work in the background. Charlie, he's just dominating in all things scrimmage. And 140 rushing, 41 receiving, and a touchdown to get them boys the win.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, people when they talk about potential MVPs, they, obviously there are quarterbacks who are just scoring the most touchdowns and playing making the best throws that lead that list. But there are so many different ways of looking at it, and one of the arguments for a CMC is he's most valuable to his team. In the way that Josh Allen is, because there isn't much else going on. That Christian McCaffrey is more valuable to the 49ers than I think any other player is to any other team in the entire league. And I think there's an argument, like you say, that it's all about Christian McCaffrey. Now, Purdy's doing a rock solid job for who Brock Purdy is, and hats off to Shanahan and Saleh and the whole coaching staff. With the injuries they've had, to be in the position that they're in now is an awesome effort across the board. But you take CMC out and, the Arizona Cardinals are looking forward to playing the 49ers.
Yeah. I think the Giants, who we're just about to talk about, they'll be pretty happy to play the San Fran Christian McCaffreys. I liked it myself. Danny, the Giants stuffing themselves up 2 years in a row. They've lost the number 1 pick late in the season.
Yeah, so this is like, you got to look at this maybe in a different light. I'm going to back the Giants on this one. So the Raiders went in and they put Max Crosby on IR, said he had to get this knee surgery and said he had to get it done right now, even though he's been playing the whole season with this niggling injury and it wasn't actually getting any worse. So the Raiders very openly were in like, we are going to tank for that number 1 pick. Where the Giants went out, they still played Jackson Dart. He had a good game, and they went out and actually tried to dominate these Raiders, almost to give hope, I think, to the Giants fan base. You got to look at the Giants and the players that they've got currently missing. You got Malik Neighbors, Cam Scatterboo, and then so many others that aren't currently there making the big difference out there. But like, you get those pieces back, and Jackson Dart has proved to be their quarterback. Like, we said at the start of the season, we can't wait to see him go out there and play. It's his team. It is his team for next season. So they're not going to draft another quarterback so far. Like, let him have his second year. Maybe draft a QB in his third or fourth if you need to. But they're really after some other big pieces. So do they really need the number 1 pick? The Raiders are desperate for a quarterback. Like, you've got Geno Smith, Kenny Pickett, both going out there. Neither of them performing as a starting QB should. So the Raiders need a QB. They need that number 1 spot. So if the Giants slip in at number 2, not needing a quarterback or not having the same needs as the Raiders do, why not go out and win and have a game and prove to your fan base that you are still out there and you're still competing and you're not there to tank. I actually love it. I rate it so much. I'm not into teams going after this number 1 draft pick. Go out there and compete every week and win.
Yeah, a winning culture is a lot better, I think.
I reckon you're right. The situations of those two teams are very different. And I do think there's just value in Jackson Dart getting another start and playing to win. Like that, I just think he needs more time on the field. He is their quarterback. and they've got no reason to think he's not. So you just want to get him as many snaps competitively as you can, and he's not going to get value out of snaps in a tanked game. It's not going to be valuable. That said, if you've got the number one draft pick, you can trade that better than you can trade the number one draft pick.
I hate the number one draft pick. No one wants that.
It's shitty.
That's shit. Danny boy, over the course of the season, there's been a few failings. The Colts going from... I actually love this stat that I saw. Sauce Gardner went from the 1-7... where was he? The Jets? Once he went to the 1-7 Colts. So, who's had a worse fall-off this season, Danny boy? The Colts... Or I'm going to say the Lions up there, and an honourable mention to the Bucks with their fall-off. But the Lions being who they're supposed to be and not being that team, or the Colts that went from 1-7 to missing the playoffs with a week to go. Or 7-1, sorry. Missing the playoffs.
It's got to be the Colts. I've lost count of how many straight losses they've had. Is it 8? Is it 9? Who knows? It's whatever the loss streak is. It's far too long. And the worst part about the Colts is when they were doing so well, they traded away multiple first-round draft picks to get there. So now they've got 2 seasons, 2 drafts in a row where they don't have number 1 picks because they did go all in on this season because it was looking promising. So the fall-off for the Colts isn't just this season. The fall-off for the Lions is this season. Next season, they'll revamp and they'll do what they need to do and try and get healthy and try and get everyone else back out there. The Lions are just constantly injured season after season. They can stay healthy for a season and, get a few more pieces wherever they pick them up from, they'll be fine. The Colts traded away their future all in for this year, which we were stoked for at the time. This is sick, this is exciting. But now you're out of the playoffs and you don't have 2 first-round draft picks for 2 years. That's got to be the biggest fall.
Charles, who would you rather be?
I think you'd rather be the Lions. I think that's true. I think they've got... I think Danny's right. More reason to be optimistic about next year. The Colts... It's funny. I think the Colts could... They could make it find a reason to not feel as bad about their collapse itself, because they could say, well, we were doing well when Indiana Jones was playing well, and you had the two-headed beast. Jones was passing it well, and you had Jonathan Taylor on the ground. But the moment Jones was out, you could sell out to stop Taylor, and that really means that there wasn't much going on. But you can see that it was a specific quarterback injury that cost them. Whereas the Lions, it felt a little more systemic. It felt a little more like it wasn't just key injuries. It was things weren't working, and a team that lost their 2 elite coordinators on the offense and defense regressed as a team, and that there's more concern there. But you have a look at the position that they're in going next year, and Danny's right. It's a clearer path for the Lions to just get healthy and just improve and learn from the lessons of this year, as opposed to the Colts, who you've got a veteran quarterback coming back from a serious injury, and you've got no first-round draft picks. It's some tough sledding,
And just further to that,
the Lions, though.
Yeah, hang on, before you get there, just further to that on the Colts. They went out and got Phillip Rivers, thinking that was going to help, put a veteran QB in a veteran QB spot, despite the fact him being a grandfather. But breaking news, they're benching Phillip, and they're going to start their rookie next week, Riley Leonard. So, the Colts are well and truly been yep, that experiment's done. We're done. Put the rookie in. Let's see how he goes for 1 week, and then we'll have a better off season.
Everyone knows that Phillip Rivers only came back just to make sure that his life insurance restarted again for another 5 years. Smart man when you've got 15 kids and, grandkids already. The Lions, I just want to say about them is they've gone from number 1 seed last year to number 4 in the NFC North, behind the Vikings, who don't have a recognised quarterback. We all can say that JJ McCarthy is not the guy at the moment. So I feel like that drop-off, although, yes, losing DCs and OCs and stuff like that does suck. They have had a lot of their players, especially on offense, pretty healthy most of the year. Jared Goff hasn't missed a game. St. Brown, maybe one or two. Gibbs has played every game. So I reckon you're being a little bit soft on how big of their drop-off is and how worried I would be being the Lions to be like, well, we were supposed to be, it was Super Bowl or bust, and they busted lower than the Vikings, who absolutely suck. I say that now, the Vikings are probably going to come out and beat the Packers this week. But before that, they suck.
I think that's a really good point. But even just in my head, if I run through the actual roster for the Lions, and there are superstars on that roster, and I run through that roster, and I think,
but that's what I'm saying.
That's a roster, but
performed.
That's true. But but they are good enough that you can turn a season, you can turn it around into a coming season and learn from what happened this year. Like, I just think you've got the horses on the paddock to get it done.
Yeah.
Just
Either
on the
way,
Packers there.
Pretty bad.
Just on the Packers quickly, because you brought it up and you're facing the Vikings this week. Are you concerned, like we're talking about drop-offs, right? Are you concerned that during the season now, you've just gone on a 3-game losing streak heading into week 18? Yes, you're locked in to the number 7 seed in the playoffs, and that's just where you're going to finish. But are you not, like, surely you're not confident going into this final game in week 18 or heading into the playoffs? Because these are the games really you want to be ramping up and playing your best football before you hit the playoffs.
I am a little bit worried. You don't want to go into a playoffs on a 4-game skid. Unfortunately, we haven't played 2 of those weeks with our number 1 and number 2 player, which does make it a little bit hard. Obviously, Micah Parsons out for the season. Jordan Love getting sniped when he played against the Bears didn't help us. Look, I'm not as bullish as what I have been. But yeah, I'm very intrigued of how we play it, whether we sit Love for another week, which that'll say a lot, whether we are just kind of getting through, and Malik Willis more than capable with shoulder, still giving him a bit of grief as well. So it'll be interesting to see how we play it. I do think we want to win before getting into the playoffs, but yeah, I hope we win. I'm not confident.
You know, when you talk about a team, selling out because they were confident, the Micah Parsons deal, you didn't sell out quite as much, to get Micah Parsons, but that was an all-in situation. And I think it's like, that is the really tough thing facing the Packers, is their biggest investment for the year is not on the field.
Yeah, but you can't be angry about that as a Packers fan.
No.
Like, we went out to try and win. It was an unfortunate injury. It's not as if we went out to try to win and we just shit the bed and Micah Parsons was no good. Like, he was elite.
That's absolutely true.
14 weeks that he played. It's just unfortunate that Bo Nix was quicker than him and he did his knee trying to chase him. So it is what it is. Like, you can't be shitty about that. I'm not dirty on the Packers because we sold out to get a fucking superstar. Like, hopefully he comes back just as good and we've still got another 5 or 6 years of him being elite and we'd be able to take advantage of it. But yeah, it's just unfortunate that it's happened, obviously, and I think it really has gone downhill since that the Achilles, his knee gave way, which is perfect. It's exactly what we needed.
Hey, sneaky extra. I've got a sneaky extra talking point. Just an interesting idea, because one thing I've noticed for the Packers, and you can correct me because you know them more intimately than me, but last year I thought Josh Jacobs was one of the running backs that you would not want the job of trying to stop, and I haven't felt that he has been as dominant this year. And I've got a sneaky theory with running backs, and I think there's only one exception in the league, is they are only good every second year. Prove me wrong.
Mm-hmm. Is King Henry the only one that you can't be?
King Henry's the only one that I think is consistent year to year. Saquon Barkley this year is not what he was last year. CMC last year wasn't what he is this year. Jonathan Taylor, slow year, came back with a good year. I don't know, with the exception of King Henry, running backs that can put together season after season of that kind of dominance. Because Josh Jacobs would have been one of the things you felt really confident about going into this season, and he hasn't been that terrifying.
Yeah. I think he's still played pretty well if you go through his numbers, but yes, I agree. And Danny, you look like you have something very pertinent to say.
Well, yeah, just on King Henry, like, he, in his later part of his career, would say that he's been dominant year after year. But, like, the early part of his career when he was at the Titans, he was still kind of, like, trying to find his feet. He was running a lot, like, east to west rather than just smashing through players
Yeah.
and actually using his body. So it took him a couple of seasons to get to that point, and he actually is quite late in his career where he's dominating every single season, which is also just as impressive. The fact that he's doing it further down the line and he's got that consistency. But yeah, Josh Jacobs, I'd say, is like, yeah, his numbers on paper might look all right, but he definitely hasn't had the impact that you needed him to.
Agreed. Playoffs are a funny game. You might come out and dominate, which will be good. All right, last thing before we let these people go back to their daily lives. The Rams, Charlie, in the last week, in the last 2 games, have cost themselves the number 1 seed, the NFC West, and now, depending how they go this week, maybe even the 5th seed, which I mentioned before is much better than the 1st seed because you get to play in the NFC South. How worried are you about them? Like, they've literally fallen off the perch, and it seems to be all around Devontae Adams. As soon as he's left, they've kind of dropped off.
Well, I mean, the flip side of that is we were saying all along that part of why the Rams were so good all season was to have Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Like, Devontae Adams really changed how hard it was to stop that offense. So it is massive. That's one of those key injuries that the whole offense was working because of his presence. And so I think it's a failing that they haven't found a way to scheme around that and maintain their dominance. I'm not too worried about the Rams. I still think they're fundamentally one of the best teams in the league. I think the bigger thing to take in here is there were 2 weeks ago when everyone was talking about the Rams as the only good team in the NFL. You know, like, see, Danny's walked off.
He's got, fuck you, I'm out of here.
but people were talking about the Rams like they were the only elite team in the NFL, and that was 2 weeks ago. And they lose an incredible game to the Seahawks. Like, great game of football, but that was also a strength of will and toughness sort of game, and they didn't get it done when they had to. And you have a look at it. I think this is the story of the NFL. I think there's a great story of for the Rams here, it's dramatic, and you're wondering if they can turn it around and go on a run and get back on form. But the NFL this year, I don't remember it being this wide open. Do you? Like, I really don't remember a time that you could say that in the AFC, pretty much anyone making the playoffs, possibly with the exception of the Steelers and Ravens, if they get in, have a chance to go all the way. And the NFC is wide open as well. So obviously you're less confident about the Bucs or the Panthers. But you have a look at it. The West, you've got the Rams, Niners, and Seahawks. They're all good enough to win. You know,
Yeah.
and the NFL, the parity this year in the NFL, it's as even as it's been heading into the playoffs. And I think that's going to make it really exciting. So I haven't written the Rams off, but
No.
it's a gut check for everyone that, yeah, like they say, you don't win a Super Bowl in December. It helps if you win all your December games, though, and they haven't done that.
The only thing I really, like, even posing this question, I was like, yeah, they were stiff. They went down in an absolute overtime thriller against the Seahawks. Got beaten on the day against the Falcons, who have some, like, Bijan Robinson's a superstar. Like, the only thing that I really, when I got down to the weeds of it, is like, well, now I'm worried about their defense. They gave up, was it 40 or something against the Seahawks, and against a Falcons team that's, Kirk Cousins threw for 106 yards. Like, I know Bijan went for 200, but they gave up a lot, and they've given them up different ways. So that's where I kind of, like, yes, they're going to still score. And Devontae Adams was running routes before the game yesterday. Looks great. His hammy will be fine. So their offense will be okay, but their defense has not had the injuries, and yet they're the ones who've been 30 and 40 in 2 weeks. That's where I kind of went, ooh, maybe their defense isn't where it should be.
And I think you're right. If we're looking at that picture of who are the genuine Super Bowl contenders, I think the big reasons you can't write off the Seahawks or the Texans is that I think they've got the 2 best defenses in football. And I think that could be the difference in a year where everyone is so inconsistent. And you'll have a game where an offense will score a record number of points and then they'll shit the bed the next week. So,
Yep.
I think that you're right. That defense for the Rams is a concern, but I think it's so wide open at this stage. I don't think anyone's panicking down at Rams headquarters at SoFi or whatever.
No, well, they're just making sure that, like I said, let's finish in the 5th seed, then we'll get a possible. Well, they're going to either the Bucks or the Carolina Panthers, which I don't think they're shitting themselves there. Mate, thank you so much. I know you're off working. It is the end of the year where you come out and absolutely dominate on the TV and the radios. So I appreciate you giving up your time. Danny boy, I know he left in disgust when we brought up the Rams, but joining us from the jungle, which was amazing. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you and all of the crew out there listening.
Great to see you again, and go Bills.
Go Bills. Oh, also, just quickly, make sure you follow us everywhere because our socials are going through the roof at the moment.
Oh, yes.
Pass it on to everyone. New Year's resolution. Tell everyone to watch and participate.
Like,
and get around
subscribe,
it.
share, write a review. Do it. Awesome.
Go back.
Cheers,
go
mate.
back. Go.
Right.
See you, mate.
See ya.